Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
It is not the elite cockroaches that determine that. It is you.
Never duplicated. I'm Alex Jones, your host. We're going to be live here for the next 58 minutes with Bob Chapman of the internationalforecaster.com. And in the next week or so, we've got until we put this on the main Genesis network as I beta test this transmission. We have no commercials this hour. We're going to have reduced commercials when the show kicks up in about a week and a half on the main network. And the good folks at WWCR are carrying this fourth hour as well right now. We're excited about that. Let's go ahead and go back to Bob Chapman and directly, of course, back into your phone calls from all over the country and all over the world. Bob, any other key points that you think need to be added before we go back to the calls?
No, let's go to the calls.
Let's go to the calls.
They're the most important.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk to Rick in New Hampshire. Rick, you're on the air.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Bob, I've often wondered, you've obviously studied this, how did the hyperinflation at the end of the Weimar Republic end, and what was the transition period, and does that have any bearing on maybe what may happen to us?
Well, in 1924, they started deflation. It started a collapse. It ended in a depression. And at that time, there were large groups of people in Germany, private armies, if you can believe that. And some of them were quite large, and one of them was the Brown Shirts. And, of course, Adolf Hitler got together with them, and the National Socialist Party ran in elections and were elected in 1931, and he was appointed chancellor. And, of course, Mr. Schack was running the finances at that time. And they put a program together out of the ashes, so to speak, that began to work for them. And, of course, not only did they try to rebuild the economy, but they also try to rebuild for war again. And to compare it to today, all of the tenets that were used by the National Socialist Party are in place today in the United States. And I would expect relatively the same thing to happen. We'll probably end up with some sort of dictatorial government if we allow the government and the people in the government to do that.
And maybe the Amero is phased into the situation, too, to replace the dollar.
Well, the Amero is something that they'd like to do, but I think under the circumstances, it's going to be very, very difficult. And the comparison, of course, is the euro. And the euro has serious problems, irrespective of the fact that it's going up against the dollar, which just happens to have one heck of a lot more problems. And so And I even see a good possibility of the Eurozone breaking up. And that's another story unto itself as to why. It's pretty simple. You got one interest rate for everybody, and it doesn't work.
Well, the government also
they just shoved down their throat.
Well, the government also never let them have votes on it. When they finally did in Belgium and France and a few other places, 80+% voted against it. So the people hate it, and it's breeding revolution.
Yes.
Anything else, Craig?
Well,
or Rick, excuse me.
All the financial problems basically go back to what happens. I mean, a vast majority of the gold on the planet that used to back currencies in America, it's been concentrated. So, but basically, once you end up with an unbacked paper currency, you've got vulnerability to all these shenanigans. Is that basically true?
Absolutely. And we don't know if the United States government has any gold. 1954 was the last audit, and Congress refuses to audit it. So, with the smoke, there's fire. Maybe they have some, maybe they don't.
Basically, what we have here is a population that's been flying blind, driving blind for a long time, but now the elite have gotten so delusional on their power trip that in a lot of ways they're flying blind and just hoping that their hubris carries them through it.
But they've stocked it away, and they've got survival centers, and Bush has got his 100,000-acre Paraguay ranch and all that.
Oh, no, I agree. They've built underground bases for themselves and all the rest of it. I appreciate your call. We're going to go to Craig in New York and many others in a moment. But first, Bob, did you hear about the communist Chinese paramilitary secret police, the death squads that they admit, Associated Press, that do the arresting of political dissidents in China and Tibet? The cream is a 30-man, 24-hour-a-day squad, so it's a 90-man squad, but 30 on the ground at any one time, who guard the Olympic torch, and they wrestled and beat up British, French. This is all in the news. They came to San Francisco 2 days ago, and a torchbearer with all these SWAT teams around pulled out a little Tibetan flag. The Chinese commissars, political police, tackled her. Then our police grabbed her and slammed her and threw her. I mean, precedent upon precedent for foreign troops. You talked about private armies. There's now confirmed BBC reports of Ukrainian troops running around in northern England and Scotland, pointing guns at people and running checkpoints with the police screaming at people. There's all sorts of, they signed a deal a month ago for Canadian and Mexican troops to, quote, police the American people. It's finally mainstream news. I mean, it's like we've woken up in the Twilight Zone.
It all goes to show you how valuable and how important those weapons are that you have, and you never want to turn them into anybody. Because if they're going to start moving troops over borders, and they obviously are, I mean, you saw the new quasi-secret agreement that went down between Mexico, the U.S., and Canada recently, and there's been a big hullabaloo about the Canadian-U.S. Agreement to exchange troops. And it's really more for U.S. troops to move into Canada than it is for Canadian troops to come to the United States.
Exactly, and Mexican here, yeah.
Yeah, but they are continuing to pursue their program, and if we can't beat them at the ballot box, we're going to have to stop. There's just no two ways about it.
Well, it's like a bad comic book or a bad science fiction movie. I mean, these people are nuts, but I guess most leaders throughout history go crazy and want total power and become Napoleonic.
That's true.
Let's take another call. Let's talk to Craig in New York. Craig, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Alex and Bob? You guys are true patriots. I just wanted to ask you what you guys thought, since you said, Bob, that the New World Order's factions were split between Europe and America, maybe the Anglo-American powers, on how to go about Iran. I thought, how likely do you guys think it is that they use Gladio-style groups, agents provocateurs like Bader Meinhof, like that, RAF? They got this white Al-Qaeda now, to provoke, to get Europe involved with going to war with Iran.
Well, you always have these factions, all of which are manufactured by the elitists, and there's not too much we can do about it. We can talk about it, but we can't act against them because we don't have the cover of authority or the wherewithal to do it. I mean, we're all making a living one way or the other. We can't traipse off to Northern Ireland to ask foreign troops why they're there. And so you have to wait for the evolutionary process to happen.
I'm very concerned about these stories in general, about this white Al-Qaeda story and stuff, just because I think here in the States, anti-war activists, all the things that they've said about the 9/11 truth movements, the Samuel Wiesenthal Center and such, they're just setting it up, and it's like, I'm very concerned about how do we figure it out who these people are.
Well, I figured it out. I mean, Bob's right that you will see the evolution of it, but we've already seen so much of their other evolution. I mean, you worked in counterintelligence, Bob, but just organically studying the New World Order. They can put out their official story, but then I can find the training manuals. I can see their pre-propaganda. I can see the physical manifestation. I can talk to people. I can go to urban warfare drills. And then I get the documents. She heads up the Second Amendment Foundation out in California, and remind me, guys, to get her on. Bernadine Smith. And Bernadine Smith sent me about 10 years ago a phone book. It was bigger than a phone book, a huge binder full of nothing but news articles. I mean, mainstream, the newspaper cutouts. And under State Department 7277, signed by Kennedy, of all people, it talks about the disarmament of the American people, how our military will be brought down, how international forces will be brought in, I-4, NATO, the rest of it. And it discusses how Chinese troops for 4 states on the, or 5 states on the western seaboard, on the eastern seaboard, how they're going to use British, Dutch, French, others, in the south, Czechoslovakian troops, in the north, other groups. And so they have troop exchanges and programs, and in New Mexico, German troops, and they're given bases. And then you tell people, they laugh at you. But where did these stories all come out 20, 30 years ago? From colonels and generals who were anti-New World Order and came out and told us. So now, I mean, in my film Road to Tyranny, made 6 years ago, I mean, more than almost 7, it was right months after 9/11, I had mainstream articles where they said Mexican and Canadian troops to protect America. They put Norwegian AWACS in. They used Mexican troops in New Orleans. Any excuse to set that precedent, just like they brought Hessians here 240 years ago. And so, as crazy as it sounds, they really are intending to do it. Bob Chapman?
No, I think they are, if they can get away with it. And, can we stop them before that? I don't know. All we can do is keep on getting the word out, because it's the most important thing of all, to make more people realize what the situation really is.
Well, I agree.
They can believe it.
This is a bold stroke. I mean, people that will fly remote control planes into buildings, individuals that are that bold and that daring, they're the types that will use foreign troops or release bioweapons or set off nukes or do anything. I mean, Bob, I'm getting that from you, and over the years I've seen your evolution to get even more hardcore. Well, I mean, with your analysis, your financial background, everything, I mean, is that a stretch to say we're dealing with people that are almost bored? They want to do wild, crazy things?
I think that's true. And, they have this egotistical problem. That's why they're as arrogant as they are. Our president is an excellent example of that, and I think they can do anything they want. But it's not only him; it's the whole group of them. Some are far more sophisticated than others, and many of them who are up at the top you never hear about. But they're pushing. They want what they want.
Hello?
Yeah, yes, sir. Anything else?
I just wanted to say about the footage of the white Al-Qaeda. My stepfather he's Special Forces, Army Special Forces, and he saw those supposed white Al-Qaeda, and he said to him it looked just like Royal Marines or MI6.
Yeah, well, let me stop you. Your family member is correct. I went and looked that up. They were airing a British TV report where they admitted that it was a British military demonstration for a classroom. And if you look, it's a classroom of anti-terror for anti-terror troops about what terrorists might do. So those were Anglo-Saxons dressed up, and they look. It's the same thing. Remember the footage of Muhammad Atta and his number 2 laughing and giggling at an Al-Qaeda training meeting? A year after that came out, we pointed it out, and it became one of the biggest stories we ever did at prisonplanet.com. And then the media admitted it was true, but a listener dug it up and sent us the clip. A British TV show about Guantanamo Bay from 2003, and we found out in 2004, they just recycled. Like in 1984, where they recycled TV stuff as propaganda later, they just took a computer animation, which was morphed, of Atta supposedly cutting him in of what it would look like at a meeting with bin Laden. And they showed that on a made-for-TV movie and said it was a reenactment, but then they released it in the U.S. and said it was a conclusive video of them there. And then it was never discussed again. It's kind of like they killed Zarqawi 14 times and would never say, okay, last time we were wrong, we didn't kill him, we killed him this time. And I appreciate your call, Craig. Bob Chapman, you were in counterintelligence, but now this is behavioral psychologists doing this. It seems they're practicing outlandish lies on purpose, just to where we just they did study shocking rats in mazes. And they
do
found
that particularly in social issues.
That they just give up.
Political issues,
Yeah.
whereas in Wall Street and within government in relation to finance, they do it 24/7. It's just incredible. I mean, the lies just never stop. You have to spend a lot of time or have a great background in research to be able to spot what they're doing quickly, because they're very good at it.
But that's my point.
They are doing it.
Is that they're almost making it base and ridiculous and crazy, and then spewing out a fire hose of lies where you can't even. I mean, by the time you're done looking at one lie, it's the next. And I mean, I think they may start showing cartoon characters on TV and saying it's Al Qaeda.
Yeah, it's a good example.
Chris in Tampa, go ahead.
I reported on Al Qaeda years ago, and explained what it was.
Well, tell folks from your research what Al Qaeda is.
What's that?
Tell folks from your research what Al Qaeda is, Bob.
Oh, it was an operation created by our government, a boogeyman, so to speak, and Osama bin Laden's part of it. He worked for the U.S. government, was trained by CIA people, and the Soviet Afghan situation back in the late 1970s and early 80s. And, the tip-off was during the mid-'80s when people in Washington started talking about this monstrous Al-Qaeda that really didn't exist. That's the evolution of that propaganda.
They were already priming the pump with the new boogeyman and doing little in-cap promotionals, introducing you like the old Hollywood studios would introduce a new star. Putting glossies out and press releases, and here he is. And his family gets all the military, U.S. military and British military bases in the Middle East contracts as their reward. Now let's go ahead and take a call. Let's talk to Chris in Tampa. You're on the air.
First question, Bob, what would you suggest we do to prepare? I've been trying to talk to some of my neighbors, those who are receptive, to try to make sure that they could prepare a little bit and maybe not depend on those who have prepared more than them so much when things get a little worse. So I was thinking also, would you encourage us to collect or to keep our money rather than in paper rolls of coins?
Well, first of all, you want to get rid of that credit card and revolving debt and all of those superficial debts that you have other than your home. It might even try to pay off your vehicles early. You want to get food, weapons, and gold and silver coins in. You want to be able to purify water. These are all very basic things. And if you have money to invest beyond that, you buy gold and silver-related assets. And
of course, as the gold and silver becomes more scarce, though, and you see people going out and melting down pennies just for the copper or the other mineral.
Yeah, what about the silver shortage?
Well, it's real. If you notice in the international forecast which you receive, we have stories from subscribers all over the world.
Well, I know it's real because I've got AP headlines. Well, 12 top silver sellers sold out. Ted Anderson can't buy it. I go down to the corner shop here, and they're sold out of everything. I mean, go ahead.
Well, it shows you how the futures market is manipulated under the guidance of the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Traders Corporation, which is supposed to oversee and make sure that everything is done legally in those markets. And, of course, they're part of the government, so they allow the manipulation. But there is not a lot of silver around. Yes, the limit coins are being made in Canada. Yes, there's been a lot of delivery taken of contracts, both large and mini contracts. And I think a good deal of the refinery's product, if not all of it, is going to COMEX and other delivery places in 1,000-ounce bars to satisfy people who are taking delivery. I mean, it's a cheaper way, actually, if you've got the money to do the big bar. That's fine, but if you don't, they have many contracts, and people are starting to buy the contract and take delivery. So that's where I think the problem is coming from, and there's no end to that, because what'll kill the authority that is manipulating the market is that there is no silver around, or there is no gold around, and sooner or later the market has to crack and go upward, and that's what's going to happen.
I agree. My second question has to do with what, as I learned from you, Dick Cheney wrote in TNAC that we need to use our friends in the media to help legitimize the use of race-specific bioweapons. And this recent media frenzy with Pastor Wright, Barack Obama's ex-pastor, I think that issue is falling into Dick Cheney's plan because it desensitizes people to even question whether race-specific bioweapons even exist. So it's also interesting that, of course, Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote in his book Between Two Ages, the year after Congress authorized the $10 million to fund a synthetic biological agent that describes AIDS. He wrote the year after Congress authorized that funding that we would be able to make new diseases. So perhaps Barack Obama should distance himself from his advisor,
mentor.
So I wanted to ask your opinion about that, Alex. Perhaps the media is following Dick Cheney's his lead that they legitimize the use of race-specific bioweapons by desensitizing us or conditioning us to the idea that they don't even exist.
They've always denied that they existed, even while it's in all the scholarly reports and Jane's Weapons Quarterly, and AIDS is admitted to have been engineered and a lot of other things. But I think that's the old propaganda while Cheney writes how great it is. And that's what it's all about. You see, they had to gear up and make 1 in 10 college graduates be in the Homeland Security apparatus. They got to have 1 in 10 being a spy, a tattletale, a torturer, a thug, a assassin, a data tracker, a surveiller, a spy, a snitch, a scumbag, a anti-American trash, because they're going to take everything. They're going to take a free society down to absolutely nothing. And now they have to shift over into the white Al-Qaeda, and they're everywhere, and don't trust your neighbors. And by the way, political speech is illegal, and everything's Al-Qaeda. I mean, all over the country, cops are going to people's doors and busting in without warrants and taking guns. I have that confirmed. This is not knock and talk. This is not in Oakland and New York and Dallas. They say on the news they're asking to come in, but no, they're demanding and pushing their way in. And this is under federal grants. I mean, it's happening. They didn't triple the size of the BATF and do this. The Supreme Court's going to rule that you've got a Second Amendment, but that means they can take your guns. That's what the court's already said they're going to do. And then the dumb public's going to think, I have a right to hand them in. That's my right to own guns. Spin within spin, lies within lies. I mean, it's all happening. Bob Chapman?
I agree completely. And I over the years, I've watched the actions of BATF as well as the U.S. Marshals, and boy, they certainly are a great deal to be desired. Their personnel aren't really with it at all.
Well, thanks, guys. Great job, and spend some time with the family.
Well, I appreciate your call, my friend.
Take care.
Take care. I am so sad that all of this is happening, Bob. I mean, how do they get cops to go demand to take people's guns and major? Don't they know that's totally evil and how Lexington and Concord in this country started? Well,
some of them do. It comes back to dollars and cents. You argue, you don't get promoted. You argue, you may lose your job. And the same thing is paramount in any place in the government. And if you're an analyst or an economist with a corporation, or I know of a compliance officer in one of the large brokerage firm's offices in the United States complained about the CEO that was leaving, receiving so many hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever it was, and the person said it dilutes the ownership that we have in the company, and the person was fired. So it's this intimidation that comes for people who work for other people, whether they're police or people throughout industry or in government, in other kinds of jobs. And so, if you speak out, you might be whistling into the wind. And so people don't speak out. Well, it's the same thing with the police. They say, okay, go out and pick up 15 guns today. Not everywhere, but in some places they do that. And so the policemen say, well, gee, if I don't go and do this, I'm going to get fired. And so they go and do it. And, what you were just saying, Alex, about don't they think that this is evil? I mean, why would they do that? In one of the programs not too long ago, I said that the police are going to have to make a choice. And they're going to have to do what's good for their family and all of their neighbors, other than the people who are telling them what to do. And they may lose their job. But that comes with the territory. If they refuse and they go along with the program of collecting guns or whatever, then they're going to become a target. And so they're kind of in a tough spot either way. But we would like to think that they would all say, no, we're not going to do that.
And by the way, I take note, I mean, some people get off on talking about blasting cops. They mean nothing to the New World Order. It doesn't even hurt the New World Order if cops get blasted. They'll just bring in the next wave that is the mercs. They plan to try this with the regular police and have them chewed up. And then that will, in the gang mentality, psychologically further compact the police into their own structures. I've learned that evil groups want to have their own minions persecuted back because they found in psychology that makes them serve the evil even more. And I remember in 96 when suddenly jet trails stopped disappearing and everybody started talking about it. And now in the last 2 years, I found all these government and university documents, and now the Department of Energy admits they're modifying the weather, and they've added stuff to jet fuel, and they have thousands of different operations going, and the Earth is 20% darker now. NASA admits it, and they claim it's to keep us safe from global warming, when that's an admitted fraud. Then there's all this declassified examples where they spray our cities with bacteria, radiation, biologicals. These are crazy people. I mean, I'm putting up on screen right now on the document cam the photo of them spraying with a huge jumbo jet, and we've always known that wasn't a condensation ice crystal. Now they just admit it, Bob. I mean, we have a secret NSA/national security government in power since 47. Now it's gigantic, runs everything. We got a bunch of nuts, people into the Kabbalah and the occult and all this other stuff running it, and it's like a bad movie. I mean, do you see what I'm saying?
Well, unfortunately, I was part of it. And, of course, that was in the early days, only a year after the NSA was formed, maybe a year and a half. And but we didn't know. We didn't know what they were going to be up to or were up to. As you reflect back, after the Second World War, the Cold War was contrived. It was created. It was to keep the pot boiling, so to speak. And here we are running all over the world, spying on each other, when in fact the whole thing was ludicrous.
I agree. Let's rampage through calls as quickly as possible. David in Texas, you're on the air worldwide.
Hello, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good.
Good afternoon. I was going to briefly say, because you've talked earlier this week about possibly Chinese troops being used on the American people.
No, they have been used.
If
They were used Wednesday. We have photos and video. In fact, I never even played the audio on the show as she begs the black Olympic torch runner, black lady, and the Chinese manhandler, the American cops grab her. It's all part of the freedom.
Yeah, if they ever try to occupy our country with foreign troops, they might be used for target practice by our people, I'll tell you that.
And the news will say, it's racist. The Chinese troops were raping and killing and burning, and people fought back. How evil. I mean, have you seen how they've said of Iran? If the globalists attack Iran, they've said in the news, if they fight back, they will be nuked. They've now said on the news, I'm sure you've seen this, Bob, fighting back is now terrorism, Bob.
Yeah, everything is terrorism. This program is, incidentally.
Except them, the real terrorist. Except them, the real terrorist.
Senate Resolution 1955, which is unconstitutional, along with everything else they're doing. This isn't the first time in American history this has happened. If I can read very quickly.
Yeah, it happened under with what happened with Lincoln, and then we almost had a second revolution when Washington, just 10 years into our founding, when D.C. tried this before. Go ahead.
Well, also in the Declaration of Independence, it talks about what happened in colonial times. The British put troops to harass our people. They had foreign standing armies.
Eat out our substance. He has erected.
I've got that. I can read it.
Yeah, read it.
Okay. Complaints they're giving to the British Crown. He instructed the administration of justice, refusing extended laws for establishing judicial powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone, that is the King of England, for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new officers, and set the swarms of them to harass our people and eat of our substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislature, meaning their Continental Congress. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power, combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction of foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, given the assent to their acts of pretended legislation for conquering large bodies.
Stop right there. Pretended legislation. Even if the judges and juries would say something and do something right, the king or his governors would just overrule it. That's all happening now. Double jeopardy, all of it. Go ahead.
Exactly. Courting of large bodies of foreign armed troops among us, among other things. And in another section, not too far beyond, it goes, He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, has endeavored to bring the inhabitants of our frontiers, which is happening with the Mexican, the illegals now, this time referred to Indians who are known to rule of warfare, undistinguished destruction of all ages, genders, and conditions. Large foreign armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun in the circumstances of cruelty, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the head of a supposedly civilized nation. Slight paraphrasing there, but that's from the Declaration of Independence. I have a proposal. I have like a lot of post-constitutional amendments I've been talking about on some of the Patriot radio programs lately that I've managed to call into. But one of the things, if it comes to it, if Congress totally goes outside the Constitution, there's one final thing we can do short of violent revolution. That is call for a Continental Congress. That would take the place of the existing Congress and declare it null and void. What you do is you call for the states to declare members of their own respective state legislatures, which under law are supposed to have.
Yeah, New Hampshire has the Article 10 right to revolt, and they've actually tried to pass that. On 9/11, they had the majority of the cities, the townships, ready to secede, and then the attacks happened and they dropped it.
Well, yeah, we get our state legislatures to send in replacements for the existing Congress until they can reconvene a new government, hold a new election, and get back to the Constitution if it came to that, or at least theoretically try it. And
the problem is the majority of the public are talking about what color iPod they're going to have or how they're going to act stylish or what new tattoo they're getting. And I'm not bashing tattoos. I'm just saying that isn't the world. And meanwhile, we've got a whole shadow government spraying us with God knows what. I mean, it's so far gone. I mean, it's so insane. I appreciate your call, David. Great points.
Excellent.
Yeah, Mark and Mash, you're on the air.
Hey, Alex. Guys, what's up? Thanks for putting me on. I just wanted to tell you guys that I met up with Noam Chomsky and fired off a question to him about 9/11.
And did he say again that he doesn't care, even if 9/11 was an inside job, so what? It doesn't matter?
More or less, yeah. He pretty much pontificated for about 6 or 7 minutes, and I was able to bring up, during his reply, I was able to bring up the bombing in '93, and he was familiar with that, and yet he didn't bring up any of the circumstances surrounding it to all the people there in Tufts University.
Well, look, he's MIT. That guy's complete government. He'll tell the truth about manufacturing consent and how the corporations control everything and how they're not free market. But then he says the answer is world government and the UN when the bankers created that as well. They use a false left-right paradigm. He's on the left. And I destroyed Noam Chomsky in a debate. There's all these liberals who aren't really that intellectual. They just sit around talking about how smart they are. Have you read Chomsky? Chomsky's at like a third grade level. I mean, we're dealing with twilight language, disinfo, communication, triple disinfo. We're dealing with revelation of the method. We're dealing with, history and integrated information warfare and finance and bioweapon control and massive ongoing eugenics programs. I mean, Noam Chomsky is like for people that play at knowing what's going on. Bob Chapman?
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, anybody who's
and as a matter of fact, you might even say he's financed by the government.
Well, he is. He's disgusting. He makes me sick. I want to get him back on the show so I can tear him up some more. He wants to ban guns.
Yeah. He's promoting a new book, so that would be great if you could get him on the air.
Yeah.
He actually says that a lot of the architects and engineers that have come out don't really have a legitimate leg to stand on, apparently.
But then gives no facts. He's just full of, he's put out a book defending the official story.
Well, he actually has a 9/11 book. I flipped through it briefly, but it was almost like it was postcards or something. It didn't seem to have any real substance in it.
Look. That old crone, nobody listens to that ninny, and it doesn't matter. He's weak, he'll be defeated. All right, I appreciate your call. Carter in Louisiana, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Gentlemen, it is my solemn honor to be able to talk to both of you. Good job, Rob, Aaron, Bob, excuse me. There are three things that I'd like to address. First off, do you think it would be a good idea to do a sheriff and police outreach so that we can bring them along to what's going to happen? And a moment ago, we were talking about what was going to happen in the communities of these people, when in fact we all know, and you may have forgotten, that they mail them off. They nationalize them and they send them to other places to commit the stuff. The other thing is, how sympathetic are guys on the inside of our government, intelligence service?
Most of them are totally freaked out and upset, but they have above them either communist or Christian Zionist who are just real stupid. They think Israel's God. They think everybody's about to get nuked any minute. I've been around these people, and they just literally, we had to carry out 9/11 because the Muslims are so dangerous. We had to lose 3,000 to get the people motivated to, but then you start trying to tell them that our government's behind the Muslims, then they go, cannot compute, and totally flip out. They've got also a lot of dumb CENTCOM guys engaging us on the blogs, but by and large, most people in government now actually don't like what's happening, and that's what may hold back the globalist, because Hitler was pretty popular up until about 42, and then it was too late. Here, before they even get going, they're very unpopular. But let's see if Bob agrees with me on that.
No, I agree with you completely. Absolutely. That is a possible seed of what could add to a rebellion, so to speak. Figuratively rather than physically. And there are people in the military who certainly don't agree. And what force they could be, I don't know. But, if we could get something started, maybe we could get it rolling.
Well, here's an example. Ron Paul got more than 80% of all, you can pull up the actual numbers, I think it's 86%, but he got over 80% of all, in the primaries, of all of the military money. And for all the Republicans, he got the vast majority, and he got more than any one Democrat. So you have the troops in 2-year-old polls 70+% against the war. So we know that 80% plus support Ron Paul. What does that tell you? See, it's a paper tiger. It's an illusion. But see, that's why they keep bring in new groups into the military. They get rid of the 80% that say no. It was the same thing in 29 Palms. They won't fire on Americans. And they always keep that cadre of 15 to 20%, and then they put them in the leadership positions. And so they're always kind of like sifting out for gold. They're sifting for turds. Exactly. And so they sift and get all the, the detritus and bring it to their breast and then give them, their dark suckling. Jim? Bob?
Well, I think that that synopsis is really brilliant because I think that, they do disagree, and they're there. We just got to motivate them.
Well, that's why it's important for Alex's movie, Endgame, which is fantastic. It takes the bristle nest that they've built in people's minds, and it cleaves it in half and allows them to see the evil at the core of it. And back on the Federal Reserve issue, are we going to have any sympathy from foreign governments based on criminal debt like a heroin needle? We were seduced into taking interest loans, and in time, interest only winds up in everybody being a slave, and there's one guy on top who's the king.
And people want to survive, so they're going to take the loans. Look, I liken it, Bob knows my analogy, to a 3-year-old child that a child molester tricks into getting into their car with candy. The child was bad. They didn't mind mommy and daddy. They ran to see the puppy or the candy. But who's really bad? The child who went and was conned, or the bankers that were there with the candy doing it?
Well, the CNR document that's going around, if that's real or not, they talk about conflict or resolution. The conflict would be as if they cancel the debts, and the revolution would be as if they amp up the taxation and cause revolutionary pressures within this country. Would foreign governments be wise or see, or would they just roll a New World Order machine and to destroy?
The evidence, the breaks, I'd say, show 70-30. They'd go with the tyranny, because these governments don't have to even get orders to use a terror attack like 9/11 that they all knew was inside job. The Italian president said we knew day one. What they do is they all just use it. It's like a formula, and then they all copy the formula. So I see if they bring us into Nazi Germany, did the world come running in to save the Germans? No. It wasn't until Hitler went wild and went on 18 different directions that then, and then that was even a bigger thing because the bankers had actually set him up. Bob?
Well, again, I think you're right. That it's a setup.
Anything else, Carter?
No, sir. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank God we have people like you on the job.
Well, thank God we got you, Carter, because if we don't spread the word now and tell everybody, May I mention?
I almost helped have a rump convention in this state of Louisiana with regard to the LA GOP and all the deceit and all of the lies we caught them in. We're talking about the Republicans. We made them do it in front of our eyes, okay? We had disinfo people show up in meetup groups that got us all in a big hubbub, and we missed the date. We got notice 11 p.m. the evening before.
Oh yeah, listen. That's why if you get involved in the process, and I appreciate your call, Carter. You bet. Exactly. Ought to have you folks like you on as a guest. That's why people say, how do you fight? How do you fight the New World Order? If you'll just start fighting, you'll get better at fighting. If you'll just go to meetings and see the corruption and see the disinfo and see the lying and see how they won't tell you when the delegates are supposed to arrive. Just get into the guts and you'll find out how corrupt it is. A lot of a fight is just showing up, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah, I agree with that. You see what happens with the illegal immigrant community, the impact that they had by just showing up.
Absolutely. It's just showing up. If you're going to lay there and let somebody kick your ass, they're going to beat the hell out of you. But if you get fired up and start fighting back, in every case I've been, you might get hurt, but they're going to get hurt too. And, if you're not the aggressor, 9 times out of 10, they're going to back off because they don't have the motivation, as the attacker that you've got as the defender. Being a defender is actually always a very strong position because, having the sneak attack's always good too, but we know they're coming. And so we're the defender and we know their game plan. That's a pretty strong position, isn't it, Bob? They've got to come up the hill towards our machine guns.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, especially when you're defending your own turf. And you see what's happening in Iraq or any other country, like Afghanistan, in Vietnam, the sacrifices people are willing to make that they might not make if they were in another country other than their own. I think it's a very, very strong motivation. Defenders are, they take casualties of the enemy of 20 or 30 to 1.
Just like the Alamo.
Exactly. And again.
And in defenders being crushed, don't think as you see people defeated and killed and in prison with whatever's coming, don't think we're losing. Take that as victories. Take that as, look, they lost almost every battle, the Founding Fathers, against the Redcoats, but it was the fact that they were willing to keep giving fight, Bob.
That's right. They just came back and back and back and back. And, the Hessians said to themselves, hey, these guys are serious.
Absolutely. Let's take another call.
And most of them stayed here after the war.
Exactly. They didn't want to go back to Germany and be slaves.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the big secret, how many slaves there were in Europe and in the U.S. More indentured slaves who were white than black, but that's a big secret, though. It's in the encyclopedia. Let's go ahead and talk to Darren in Florida, then Mike, Casey, Abby, Clark, Luke, and Mark. That'll be it we have for calls. We got to move fast for those callers. Darren in Florida, you're on the air.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to let you guys know I was talking, while I was down in Miami, I was talking to a lot of police officers, handing them information, telling them to Google your movie Endgame, Freedom to Fascism. And some police officers, took it. There were a very few that would have nothing to do with it. And there were even a few that said, I know there's something going on. And I would, challenge them and, talk with them. And a lot of them were really, really open to the situation. And I'll tell you this, every time I go into a cafe, I hear another person talking about the evidence standing out in 9/11. And people are really, I really start to see, a lot of stuff going on as I hand people information at the traffic lights. I'm posing questions to them, and I see them thinking a lot harder about it now than ever before. I think the publicity from Jesse Ventura is really, really going to make some headway there for us.
Oh, it already has. That's why people need to go to prisonplanet.com, get the archive stories from last week, and spread the word. In fact, Bob, I wanted to bring that up with you. Jesse Ventura, Willie Nelson, all these people going public on this show, it's accelerating. There is a lot of hope. Take my friend's film, American Drug War, Kevin Booth, that I consulted on, and then I'm in. It's aired like 50 times on Showtime. I've heard like 3 people in the last 2 weeks on the street who don't even know me talking about, have you seen American Drug War? Did you know the government brings the drugs in? And local talk show hosts, neocons, are trying to defend it, saying it's all a conspiracy, and people call into the show and go, but the CIA Inspector General 10 years ago said it was true. It's like all their confidence. I think they've overreached, Bob.
Well, I think they have too, in all sectors, because their program got blown up on them, and particularly financially. And this is leading to many other things. And I think they're in serious, serious trouble in all fronts. Even though the bravado and the arrogance is there, it's not going to carry them. There's too many people today, because of the Internet, because of programs like yours, Alex, that reach out and tell people what's going on. It's clicking in, and they're in serious trouble, like you say.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the call, sir. Really great news. Mike in Illinois, you're on the air. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Good.
I just want to make a statement. Actually, I'm really heartbroken in how this nation has geared. And
heartbroken? We're all in danger.
Yeah, we are in danger.
This is sure. Not just heartbroken. I agree with you. We're in red level crisis.
I want to encourage everybody. I'm a disabled veteran. I called last week thanking you, but I'm a disabled veteran, and I'm very, very proud of this country. I'm going to be carrying the civil flag in May every day at my college on my back with my school bag. I'll be carrying it every day. So I encourage any students that are listening in to not really so much to start a protest or march, but just carry something that will start and open people's eyes. I spoke with some of my family who I don't speak with much, but I've spoke with them about this subject, and they're very aware about everything that we talk about. So the word is spreading, and I am very, very happy that people are opening up their eyes.
We're witnessing history. Thank you for the call. I'm really moving fast now. And we're not being cheerleaders here. I remember 6 years ago saying hardly anybody's awake, but saying if we carry the ball, we can wake up others. It gets easier now. If we got 50 million people awake, it's now wake up 50 million more by one person. Then that's 100 million. And then you wake up one more, that's 200 million. Game over, we've won. And the globalists are scared. I think they may set off a nuke or bioweapon or start a war any time to try to fail forward. Bob Chapman?
I just, you covered it again. It is what it is.
I guess it happens every 50 years, 60 years, you get thugs, and there's always a world war. And you read history, this is the norm. Now they got nuclear.
Well, I think, Alex, one thing you can add to this, and this is for the people who don't believe. If for years now, perhaps the last 10 years, more than anything else, you look at what has come out on the Internet and through shows like this, and you've got to believe there is such a thing as the Illuminati, and there is a conspiracy. It does exist for those people who are in power, and you've got to get that into your head if you're not listening.
Well, exactly. There's always been secretive elites, and they tricked us that they didn't exist, and that was the devil's greatest trick. Let's go ahead and talk to Casey in Austin. You're on the air with Bob Chapman, theinternationalforecaster.com. Go ahead. Okay, Casey, you're gone. Your phone cut out. Abby in North Carolina, you're on the air.
I just want to say I'm happy to be part of the Second American Revolution, and I'm very happy to be informed of what's going on. Finally, people are starting to wake up in America. We need to start helping people throughout the world wake up so that when we get down there and we get down in the grit of things, there's other people that have to be out there that will fight with us, not just here, but all over the world, for freedom, liberty, and justice for everybody.
Well, I heartily agree with you, Abby. Anything else? She's gone. Clark in Arkansas, you're on the air.
Oh, I'm very glad to speak to you today, Alex.
Nice to talk to you.
I think that you should do a show fairly soon about the way that you make films and the fact there's so many creative people that need to use their gifts to enlightening other people more so about.
Well, that's all I've ever tried to do is tell people they're all leaders, they all have passion, they all have intelligence. Just do something. People expect that they've got to get up and kick the New World Order's butt by themselves, and it's got to be beautiful, it's got to be perfect. No, it's just putting your weight against them, not laying down, not complying, saying no, saying I'm never giving in. You cut my arms and legs off, I'm going to be biting you. Bob Chapman?
Well, I don't know how you do those. Make those videos and things like that. I don't know how you find time to do it.
But it's not just that, Bob. How do you find time to write a big, detailed analysis, every couple days?
We both work 18 hours a day. What can I tell you?
But you just do it. See, Bob does his thing. I do my thing. You do your thing. We all just do something towards exposing these bastards, and they'll fall. Clark, anything else?
Yeah, I got a little short list. First, American drug war. It is a necessity as much as owning in-game to watch. This is a necessary film for people to have in their activist toolkit for people. This is ridiculously important. I can't even, fully describe it. As you said, Sela Castillo is now awaiting a trial basically because he spoke out so vehemently for years and is in this film. And marijuana is kind of like the 9/11 of drugs. It's once you look into its legalization or criminalization, it's just so ridiculous. It's sad, and also hope people do a lot of stuff for July 4th and start planning for that as an activist state. First, I wrote this down: inform yourself and then educate others about the economic terrorism of the reserve. Because I remember, who was it, Paris on your show that said, people, you got to inform yourselves when you talk about this, because talking about stuff you don't know about almost is worse for the cause. People have to understand economics. They have to understand the Federal Reserve's placement and the scope of this situation we're in, and they have to inform others vehemently in order for them to, if people know, ahead of time who was going to do 9/11, they would have been able to stop it even more so. I really think that it would have gone nuclear or something people like you wouldn't have put out the word that, you know, this stuff does happen. And the only way to keep the economy safe, you know, farmers are farming, businessmen are doing business, but as long as people are starting to hear about the fact that, no, the depression is caused, inflation is being marked the wrong way, that is just terribly important to everybody, and especially I hope that people work hard over the spring and summer to inform people about that before it gets too late and before too many people can, you know, totally look the wrong way as we go into this inflationary process. Thank you very much.
Well, I agree with you that they were planning a lot of other stuff on 9/11, and for some reason, I don't think it was me on that day. For some reason, they didn't go full bore, but it just gets more and more and more and more suspicious. All the things they're up to, all the things that they're doing. And I know this, if we hadn't been exposing the paradigm of government-sponsored terror, they would have carried out more attacks by now. I think we've taken that tool of government-sponsored terror, that mechanism, and broken it right in front of their faces. Bob Chapman?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they ran into a brick wall there. And they're trying to find other avenues. And the avenues, at least as the Bush neocon group is concerned, is Iran. They'd like to get that going to prove that there is, in fact, terrorists everywhere, and to keep the pot boiling. And, you know, the very temerity of what they've done in Poland and the Czech Republic, along with the Europeans and the UK, I mean, they're just saying to Russia, we won't have a war with you. And so part of that aggressiveness is caused by the fact they got stopped at the pass on terrorism. Nobody believes them anymore.
And so it's an attempt to just basically throw their weight around.
Right, and cover up what they're doing. You know, they're terrified of this thing. You know, if they ever get in a position where they got to go to court, they might get hung.
Well, have you heard, like, all sorts of big, high-level UN people and parliament people and former presidents in Europe are saying they think it's an inside job and that there needs to be an investigation? It's really starting to concern them. Let's go ahead and take a few final calls. I'm going to let Bob go, who I really appreciate giving us all this time. Luke and Mass and Mark in Michigan, and that's going to be it. Luke and Mass, you're on the air.
Alex, I'm kind of worried about my friends down in Texas because I know the fighting spirit that you guys have, and regarding just your well, you could call it national pride for lack of any other term. So I think that if anybody were apt to take out a part of the country, I think it's going to be you guys, because I think Texans are the biggest.
Well, I don't want to say Texans are tough or Texans are unusually tough or something. I mean, a lot of the old Texas thing was it was already the roughest, meanest people that came over to the United States, and then the very toughest, meanest people that wanted to fight, and frankly, they just loved killing and being killed and loved having wars, and they loved staying at the Alamo and dying. I mean, they were into it. These were some real badasses. Davy Crockett, all of that. The most cunning, vicious, smart, whatever, greedy, because they wanted land, were the people that were the cutting edge that finally came into Texas, and then they broke the back. By the time Texas was captured, the back of the Indians, because before the natives were beating the whites a lot of the time, and it was huge battles, and Andrew Jackson and the rest of it. But by the time they got Illinois and Texas secured, that was the most vicious fighting, and so Texas was peopled with those folks. But now most Texans still like to drink and get in fights and all that stuff. And I have found, growing up in Dallas, people really, especially the rednecks, I mean, we used to go beat each other to pulp on the weekend for fun, and people would kill each other.
I just had a client come in from Texas in our studio in Providence, Rhode Island, and I mentioned the Trans-Texas Corridor to her, and her face, I was like, yep, that's a Texan. I've traveled with a lot of Texans.
Yeah, but I want to say something bad about Texans. Most Texans now are used to love Bush. They buy into the fake Americana. Hey, you know what? Let's go into emergency overtime. Let's kill the intro. We'll rejoin transmission because I finish up. Who am I talking to? Luke and Mass, and then we'll let Mark finish, and then we'll plug Bob Chapman's newsletter. Luke, finish up.
Yeah, it was just I've traveled with Texas in an international group. Matter of fact, I actually traveled with the daughter of Will Farish. I don't know if you're familiar with Will.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I've kind of got the first-hand experience with the Illuminati per se, but not much of a threat there, I don't think.
Okay, I appreciate your call. Mark in Michigan, last caller. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. Hey, thanks for the chance.
You bet. Thank you for calling.
You're welcome, and thank you, Bob. I appreciate all your work, too. It's been excellent to listen to you. What basically I wanted to talk about is a little bit about Sully. I heard the interview yesterday, and I hope people will call him and send him money. But I appreciate you helping him out. What I want to talk about is I don't really think that you're going to find too many police departments where the police are going to wake up. I think they're all pretty much alert of it and just letting it go on. I'd like to think that we had some police, but I think the so-called good police have been watching the bad ones get away with it so long, I think they're all co-conspirators. But I think that's kind of a scary thought, and it goes along with what you were talking about, that they could just pull the plug at any time in order to push their agenda.
Yeah, it's a personal power trip, and as things get even scarier, they feel like, well, at least I'm on the winning team. I got to jump. We just had to let Bob go. He had to do another interview. I want to thank Bob Chapman, the international forecaster, for coming on. I had Christina Ebersol on today. I aired some clips from my original show on the day of 9/11, talking about anthrax attacks and everything else. Very good show. We're going to rejoin that show with Christina Ebersol. And right now, so I just really want to thank all of you for tuning in today. I'll be back Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Please get the film American Drug War. It really needs to be seen. It's an important film, and we have it. It's 3 hours of extras, 2-hour film, 5 hours total. I consulted on it. A bunch of my stuff's in the extras and in the film. And I just hope that you will get American Drug War, The Last White Hope. It needs to be seen. People need to understand how it's staged, how the government ships it in. I mean, what's it say right here on the cover? It says, "We have met the enemy, and it is our government." And the Austin Chronicle said, a movie that features interviews with comedian Tommy Chong, former drug czar and the founder of the Blood Street Gang, is doing something right. 5 years in the making. Again, if you have PrisonPlanet.tv membership, you could see the video for this extra hour we do, sometimes more. Then we upload this within 2 hours of the show ending to PrisonPlanet.tv, so you can watch this extra hour when you want, how you want. I want to thank all the members of PrisonPlanet.tv. Without you, we couldn't do this. Okay, sorry to all the other callers. We are just out of time. This is the ending now. They first shot the hook in here, and I threw the hook away from me. Great job to everybody running the show out there. I want to thank them for the wonderful job they're doing, and I'll see you back Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central, and back Monday, 1 to 3 p.m., the new showtime. We're blasting into the Christina Ebersol interview live, so please stay with us. That is, we're going live back into retransmission at INFOWARS.com. Love you, folks. Bye-bye. See you Sunday.